everybody. I'm still at the Sony Kando event, and it's been quite the event. I'm having a great time and getting a chance to catch up with a lot of old friends and new friends. This is my last interview today, and I'm going to be talking to Don Smith. Don, pleasure meeting you, and I've been following you for years. You have an amazing career out there, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Don's career has changed from doing sports and other things into fine art landscape, as well as his transition from the DSLR and why he's moved to mirrorless. So, Don, let's start out. We're both old guys in this business, and we've been around doing this for quite a while, and we both had good careers in photography. To me, it's one of the happiest places in my life, and it saves me a ton on therapy bills.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But let's talk about you. You started photography at what age and doing what?
I picked up my first digital SLR, I believe, when I was 12 or 13. It was a present from my parents. We had a family friend who had a digital SLR system, and they saw me. I couldn't put the camera down. I was enamored by it. Got it as a birthday present. And I kind of grew up in this area of Monterey, Carmel. I live a little inland from here, so you know, Ansel was in this area, and I just started running around shooting and having no idea what I was doing, but I started really in landscape photography, very bad landscape photography, but that was my introduction to photography. It was way back in high school.
And did you have a teacher in high school that taught you?
You know, I didn't. I had what I'd call a few mentors, people that lived in the area that were professional photographers that knew I had an interest. And they would they would share their knowledge with me, which I've always tried to pass on now. That's my way of saying thank you to those people. But I didn't take any formal training until I got to college. And I realized at that point I had a real interest in doing the sports photography, and I kind of had a knack at doing it. I think back, this is before the days, we're saying we're old guys, this is before the days when we had any of this auto stuff or autofocus.
I know, you focus manually and you were lucky to get 3 frames a second.
So you ran around with your 300 2.8s, 400 2.8s, 600 f4s, and tried to shoot a football game, and you either had that ability to stay with it, hand-eye focus, or you didn't. And for some reason, that was just something I was blessed with. It was nothing I could go out and train to do. I either had it or I didn't.
Well, I actually think it was training, because before autofocus came, who would ever thought we would have had autofocus? And you just got to be good at knowing, predicting which way it was going to go, and move that focus ring that way.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I knew, and I would practice. It sounds funny. I'd go out in the backyard and practice with my dog, and I'd at the time would have somebody throw a bone and just let that dog run around, and I got to know if I turned the lens this way, I was pulling focus. If I went that way, I was, or if I was shifting sideways, to just leave it alone. And so in a way, I was training myself.
And we were carrying 3 and 4 cameras with us sometimes, and one monopod if we were lucky. I mean, our backs have got to be like so degenerated. It's
yeah, we were just talking about that.
It's like,
knock on wood, we can keep going.
So you've done a lot of cool sports work in your day, and did some Sports Illustrated stuff. But somewhere you made the transition to want to get back to, what motivated that? You went back to landscape.
You know what it was? It was honestly because I got kind of branded as a baseball photographer and a football photographer. And I can remember, especially living out here in the Bay Area, 1 o'clock starts in Oakland, California. It's probably some of the ugliest light you'll ever see, maybe next to Southern California. And we would have these 5 o'clock afternoon games every once in a while, and I'd be so excited that we were going to get this low light and shoot through the shadows and let the players run into these shafts of sunlight. And when I finally got back out to doing the landscape, it really came through a vacation I had in the Eastern Sierra. And a gentleman who I've read a lot of books, his name was Galen Rowell, and he passed away. Yeah, I'm sure you knew him.
He passed away doing what he liked.
He really, I can remember his gallery in Bishop. My wife and I and our 2 little boys were young at the time, and I was transfixed, just looking at Galen's pictures and thinking he did all this with a 35 millimeter, and it was all about on a rope and being mobile. God. And I thought, for the first time, I really don't need a 4x5 or an 8x10 to be a serious landscape photographer. I can do this with my existing equipment. And Galen was obviously all about the light on the edges of the day. And I think he was such a huge influence on me, along with Ansel, obviously.
You know, there was a lot of good guys back then, and
Yeah.
you know, it was a slower craft. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, we
it
didn't
was.
move as fast, and
Yeah.
you know, exposures had to count.
Yeah, that's true. We tell people in our workshops nowadays, every time you used to make a click, that was an investment out of your pocket.
It was.
Nowadays, you make a click, it's an investment in knowledge. So we don't teach to rapid fire, but be thinking about every frame you're making as we used to do in the olden days when we were shooting film.
Yeah, you know, even at our old age, we discover new things. I do and teach a lot of workshops with Art Wolf, and a lot of times what we look at these days is not just the broad landscape, but the abstract and the image inside the image, the picture in the picture. What's interesting, and let's do a little generational switch, and then we'll come back to some other things. You know, and I don't know if it's like we're the old guys in the neighborhood these days, but I so much remember, for me, making the print what completed photography. Obviously, you know, if you shot negatives, you're not going to say, "Well, look at this negative." You know, it's like you can't. You had to make a print.
Yes.
And you had to be good at making a print. And of course, this is what Ansel preached and everybody else. I mean, part of it was having the knowledge to capture that image properly, and the other part was being able to take what you have on that negative and get it on a piece of paper properly.
Exactly.
And we massaged prints like we do in Lightroom, Capture One, and whatnot in Photoshop these days. So, you know, we still do dodging and burning, but there's a generation now, you know, that are taking pictures, that's where it stops.
That's where it stops. It ends up on a screen. And the printing process, really, people like Charlie Kramer are still the masters at teaching, and to tap into their knowledge and to understand how they've translated. I printed a lot. I had 3 black and white darkrooms along the way.
Yep.
And then at that point, I was getting away from the fine art and really starting seriously to go into the sports. And when I started shooting with the magazine, especially Sports Illustrated, we shot all chrome. Yeah. And you had a miss factor of maybe a half a stop either side.
I know.
Do I write for the Time Life Labs, push it a half stop, pull it a half stop? You know, we were talking earlier.
There was no forgiveness.
No forgiveness. Your stomach would churn until, for me, being out here on the West Coast, 9:30 came and went, and if I didn't get that phone call, I knew the shoot was good and the exposures were on the mark. And histograms came along in digital cameras, and I fell in love with them because it's all there for you. It's all math.
And there's a lot more dynamic range and area to recover.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, nothing like Kodachrome 64 and even 25. Remember,
25, I
you
shot
had to get
25.
right dead nuts on to get that exposure
Exactly.
right. But there was nothing like it.
It was like a painting.
I remember the Kodachrome. I remember getting in the long boxes where each slide was, you know, separated and not there, and you know, it was with the looper. I mean, put it in the ectographic projector to, you know, oh God.
And that in itself was, to me, I still relive these experiences of being able, that anticipation when that box of chromes would come back. Or even being in the darkroom with the old tray, you know, the developer, and starting to see that print emerge. And now it's so instant, and it's good in one way, but it'll never replace those experiences of doing that. My wife used to laugh at me. I have to say this, 27 years of marriage. When we were dating, the first time she came over to my house and she opened up my refrigerator, and it was filled with film and a couple of Diet Cokes, and that's all that was in there. And she
Well,
won't
that's
let
all
me.
we needed.
She won't let me forget that till this day.
Yeah, I had a film Diet Coke and
Yeah.
a dark room with my big. I had Marantz speakers in it.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you know, duct taped over where the lights and the dial
We would
were.
live in those dark
Oh,
rooms
it was
for
just
hours and hours and hours.
And luckily, we got a chance to experience it. But you know, quite frankly, you know, we've also adapted, and you know, we are in the golden age.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, these guys that are entering into it just take it for granted, but. Man, when you consider what we're doing these days, what we can go out in the field and shoot and come back with, there's never been a better time to be a photographer. Maybe, probably that's why there's so many damn photographers out there right
I think
now,
so, and the thought that everybody can do it.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's nice to see people enjoying photography.
Yes.
Now, you run a lot of workshops, and you teach a lot. So tell me some of the workshops and locations you go to.
Well, I started out domestically, and actually I started, was trained by a gentleman named Gary Hart, who's a Sony artisan, who you just met.
Yep.
And he really kind of took me under his wing and said, I'm going to start running Yosemite workshops. You want to do it? And I I kind of at the time said I'll do one, no contracts. I'll see how I like it. That's led to, I think I'm starting my 13th or 14th year of running workshops. And actually my first workshop on my own was right here in the Big Sur area. And I still run till this day 2 workshops a year. I've expanded out now for the tail end of my career here, kind of coming down the home stretch. I really want to do international workshops. And I've added 3, New Zealand, Namibia this summer, and Ron Modger and myself, an ex-Sports Illustrated shooter, just got back from Patagonia about 3 weeks ago, and we're going to be offering one there next February.
Amazing places. That's actually, you know, I've avoided the domestic ones a lot, you know, except for maybe the Palouse area. You know, sometimes I'll fill out the forms and do Death Valley and you know, some of those, but most of mine are out-of-country workshops and, you know, on ship-based workshops in places that are really hard to get to. But you know, it's almost discouraging sometimes, because in many of the workshop locations we go to, you know, they used to be all of our own, and now, you know, we're standing on bridges and all these different places with, you know, 50 photographers.
I'm chuckling because I'm thinking immediately when you said that, Mesa Arch and Canyonlands National Park.
They got the Zion Bridge and everything.
Oh, I've actually switched that workshop to, I still love doing the workshop there, but I switched it into January, and what a difference. And it took me 3 years of the rangers out there I've gotten to know convincing me this is a time you should be out here. We have to offer the iconic places, but we try to pride ourselves in going beyond that and finding the less off the beaten path places that we've worked hard to try to find that photographers don't know about, or they haven't seen a lot.
I have my stashes. I'm willing to share with friends like you.
Yes, I just picked your brain about one of those places.
I find it a lot nicer just to have a smaller group. I'm doing this now in Antarctica trips where I sell by the Zodiac. So I'll sell a Zodiac that I'll photograph, and then, you know, might sell another Zodiac for the second instructor if we do it that way. And that allows us to be with our customers the whole time and really, you know, listen to what they need help with, and then, you know, follow through with delivering on that. But, you know, we get a chance to talk photography, you know, at dinner and on the boat and the ship and every place else. And it's maybe at my age, it's just becoming a much nicer way of doing things.
I think it is. I could see myself starting the trend in that direction also. And I believe it's more immersive for the client too, because they're there however long the workshop is. My internationals run 10 days and 11 nights, and we just immerse ourselves from sunup to sundown in photography, and we do some training along the way when in the middle of the day. But it's primarily all about them and all about their shooting.
That's all it has to be.
Otherwise, sure.
And you know, I have so many of my customers that are running their own workshops now too, which, you know, I think I counted 38 or 40 last time I looked.
We're starting
to
get
it's like,
that
oh,
now.
cow, really? Come on, I took you there. You know. Anyway, it's the way it is. Well, you know, talk hardware for a minute. You know, obviously we both come back from the DSLR days and the manual focus days, and what got you into digital and specifically Sony?
You know, I'm going to have to tell you the truth. It was a gentleman named, a colleague. We know each other from the Yosemite area, Michael Fry. And I happened to land on Michael's blog one day when he wrote about his experience with an A7R. And I'm thinking, this is strange, because I don't really remember Michael being one to write a lot about gear. But it was enough that I had B&H send a camera out. And I took it to a workshop I was doing in Grand Tetons, and I was out on the pre-run, of what I call the pre-run portion of the workshop, a 3-day stretch I go on. And I can remember just being enamored by the dynamic range of that sensor in that camera. And I was using the Metabones at the time.
And adapting Canon lenses?
Yeah, adapting all my Canon lenses, because Sony didn't really have a lineup, not anything near what they have nowadays. And I can remember calling B&H back and said, whatever you're charging me, charge me, because you're not getting this camera back. And I pretty much, from that day forward, 100% of my landscape work was done with the A7R line, and I'm currently now with the A7R3.
That A7R3, the new one, bigger battery and all the features they put into it, just amazing. And for the G Master glass, what do you think of that?
Well, the G Master is really made to optimize with these new sensors, as you know, the resolving power. The edge-to-edge sharpness, I mean, we were back in the days, we used to run around with 5 cameras and a prime for every camera, because, you know, you never used a zoom. And nowadays, I don't hesitate putting the zooms on there because they're so razor sharp. They have the edge sharpness that I'm looking for. And I can cover, my bag is a 12 to 24. 24, I just swapped out the 24-70. I'm not getting rid of that lens, it's beautiful.
The G-mount, yeah, but to go
But
to
I'll
105.
put a 105 when I'm traveling in, and then a 100, 400.
Exactly.
And a 1X converter, and that's my bag really. And I can go anywhere in the world with that bag, and I'm pretty well covered.
I mean,
in
think
landscape.
about that. We can do 12 millimeters all the way up with the 1.4 to 560 millimeters with 3 lenses.
Yeah,
or
we
4
really
lenses,
can.
You know, it depends. But that 24 to 105 turned out to be, it's so lightweight and it's so nice. I don't know why it didn't become a G Master, because I mean, really, I said, this isn't going to be as good as the 24 to 70.
And I think it was better.
Oh my heavens, I think
And I'll,
it is.
and then I'll throw in like a 90 macro and a couple of extension tubes.
I have specialty ones
Things
when
like
we
that,
go
but-
out for stuff we know we want to
But
mess
that's
with.
my basic landscape kit, and I can keep it fairly light. And I do keep an A9 in the bag. I was proud of the fact that I was part of a small team that helped to get to develop that camera, and just absolutely love that camera for
amazing,
shooting any
isn't it?
wildlife or
Is there
anything that
20
moves.
frames a second, no blackout, silent. I mean, I actually turn the audio on just so I have audio. You know, it comes out a little speaker or something. But,
Yeah. I
boy,
used to photograph golf tournaments, and you could just think of the times. I remember right over here at Pebble Beach one time in a U.S. Open where Jack Nicklaus was lining up on a crucial putt on the final day, and a horde of photographers, and a shutter goes off. And he was gracious. He backed away and he says, "I'm going to count to 3. Everybody get their shot, move back in over the putt." This is a man trying to win the U.S. Open on the back 9 on Sunday, and everybody went, brrrr. And then he says, "Okay, guys, don't shoot until after I hit the putt."
please. Yeah,
And
man.
he sank the putt for the birdie.
There
I
you
can't
go.
remember if he won the U.S. Open. I think that was the year actually Tom Watson holed out on the 17th hole. It's kind of a famous time in golf for the golf viewers out there.
What do you think's holding the other 2 guys back?
The fact that they haven't really seen the future of what was going on here.
Boy, it's almost like the old yellow box story. Isn't
Yeah, it really, yes. One of the things I've prided myself with is that, I tend to try to see what's coming down the pipe and what's real. And I was one of the very early adopters to digital, and I was one of the very early adopters to mirrorless. And I think at some point you have to just kind of ask yourself, is this where the future of photography is going? And I'd rather be on this side of the curve than trying to catch up.
We said that many years ago. Michael Reichman, the founder of the site, he and I would, say, well, where's Nikon and Canon? We were looking at like the Olympus at that time, and the early Sony A7. And then Fuji came along with their XT1.
Yeah,
and,
which I actually owned for about 6 months.
Yeah, and but even Leica saw the light and made an SL. I mean, it's heavy as a brick, but what, they did it, and it's actually a pretty darn cool camera in
I
so
think
many
it's
ways.
amazed the industry. And I can only, from a sports photographer's end, and I shouldn't be talking out of class here, but
it's okay.
once we get the long glass out, and I know the 400-2.8's coming out sometime this summer, a serious sports photographer making their living, that's all that's holding them back right now. They want to see that 300-2.8 glass, 400-2.8, the 600-4s, the 500-4s, and the wildlife people. I don't want to exclude them.
that's...
And once, I know Sony's working hard on those lenses, and once those lenses come out, there's really no reason.
No, I think it's game over and game change. But then again, we hear that both of those other companies are, working hard on a solution too. But they're going to have to kind of go nuclear if they're going to make it.
Sony's so far out ahead of the game at this point.
And they probably have a chessboard saying, well, we'll wait till they come out with it, and then we've got this.
Yes.
So they'll lob one back. Anyway, I wrote an article a while back calling, if I was a betting man, and it said, where I'd put my money. And we made a big deal about putting our money with Sony, and of course I think Fuji's done some innovations too. So
I think so
not
too.
to knock them off, but they're APCS, and I think they were very smart to go to medium format, and they're going to do very well in that line too. So, progression and innovation is what it's all about,
Exactly.
and it's going to be fun. I would really be honored sometime to meet somewhere in the field with you, and I hope our
that
paths
would be
cross. And maybe do a workshop
Yep.
together, or go shooting together. You know, we share a lot of the similarities, and it's just sometimes been too long to get to know some of these guys out there. But it was an honor, and I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us today. We could probably talk a lot longer, but then we'd probably lose a lot of viewers.
Maybe tonight at the barbecue with a beer or two.
But for everybody out there, I'm going to put the information below so you can get to Don's site, and you'll be able to see his pictures, his Instagram, and everything will be linked down below. So check it out, take a look at it. You have a YouTube channel also.
I do. I've learned through Kando here. I took a class on YouTube, and I need to get much more active on my YouTube site, which I plan to do moving forward.
So check it all out, and Don, real pleasure again.
Kevin, thank you very much. And I really appreciate what you do for the industry with this website. I think it's an invaluable website for people to go to.
It's a passion, you know. Michael and I were best friends, and he kind of, it just came and worked for him, and he it was his love, and it's become my love, and you know, photography's been the only thing I know. So
well, you do a fantastic job with what you're doing. So
great,
it's appreciated.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, you can do the subscribe button below to subscribe to our channel, and of course the little ding dong button if you want to be active or notified when we come out with a new video. And thank you very much for watching. Don, thank you again, and we'll see you guys on the Luminous Landscape.